Good evening, dear teachers and partners. The topic in this team is different. It's quantitative research issues. Okay, quantitative research make use of disadvantage that does not mean that that we should uh, abandon them by force, nor that qualitative research can be conducted using disadvantage in manner consistent with this purpose. Okay, the main advantage of quantitative research should be highlighted. Research plans, concert for the competence and credibility, careful construction of research instruments, accuracy and precision. Qualitative research is extremely interested in the depth of certain situations. Details, means, causes, process, okay? And clarify most inaccurate or imprecise data. Proper planning. It must be based on proper analysis and meant for theoretical base. Okay. Problem questions. In research question and problem are not well defined, the research objects information can be extracted from them at theoretical foundation. Of the context at the last understanding of the weather data collection techniques and appropriate to use. A data collection method. Consuming and some students may find confused to select questionnaires and sometimes a minutious application in data collection process. Interpretation and analysis research change because it can experimental, and this is only true in research is prepared to provide good adequate information and about results of the research. Thank you very much for this attendance. Thank you.
There are other problems during the research, and the first is the researcher-problem relation. And here we can see that the researchers usually base their study only on previous study without obtaining information from college experience, popular wisdom, personal experience, or people who are part of the problem or are in the context. And then the students end up facing serious problems trying to adapt the whole research or research tool to different realities. And the second is the variables definition. And here we can see that this is based on the lack of technical procedures. Based on a strong research, theoretical process might produce misconception on what type of variables can be measured or not. Since variables are features of something in particular, it can also open a wide variety of other features which can produce variables not identified. And the last is the validity and reliability. It's important for measurements to reflect what is actually being measured. Taking abstract variables into account in the research such as motivation level, is particularly challenging. If our previous research information differs significantly from our measured outcomes under similar circumstances, the method should be analyzed carefully.
Numbers. Semiotic is the study of the signs and symbols use and interpretation too. It could be visual or verbal communication system. It's the way that we see the world and understand the impact, inform unconsciously. It's like decoding. Classify data and measurement scales, determine analysis and methods. Classify and four types. That is whole numbers, that is no fractions, no decimals, and no negatives. Second, rational numbers expresses as fractions of two whole numbers. Third, integers. Whole numbers can be negative. And finally, irrational numbers, they cannot be fractions of two whole numbers. Next, numbers in research are nominal. Nominal, they don't count and measure anything, they just name or label things. Second, ordinals, show sort order. And finally, continuous, count and measure at any point of the scale, can include fractions. Types of data we know is qualitative and quantitative. In quantitative, we have continuous, that two intervals measurable at 2 points. They are infinitive numbers. Order is discrete. In discrete, there are finite numbers. Sometimes limit the precision of instruments. And finally, converting nominal into continuous number. For to end, I say that level of probability numbers is considered a 0 impossible and 1 certainty. Thank you.
Okay, classification of variables. First one, we have independent variable. That it is element phenomenal situation that explains conditions, determines causes, quantify or quality of another element, phenomenon, or situation. For example, in an experimental work, the independent variable is what the researcher manipulates to see what happened in the dependent variable. So the dependent variable is which explain the explained, conditioned, and determined or causes by the independent variable. Here the division of independent or independent variable is arbitrary, because a variable that is now independent can be dependent, or vice versa. After this, we have intervening variable. This influences the relationship of dependency that exists between independent and dependent variable. After this, we have control variable. This variable is the researcher can determine the values. So this is a control variable that describes the independent variable in the case, for example, in experimental work. The random variable. The researcher cannot assign. The dependent variable is always random because it doesn't depend on the researcher, and for that reason, the independent variable is random too. Here we have hypothetical variables that are constructed by humans' minds, and they are not observable directly, but only infer through their effects or behaviors. Observable variables. These are called experimental too, and they can be the object or direct observation and measurement of many different, for example, by measure the height or weight of some students. The attributive variables, they cannot be manipulated, just only observed, and represent many human characteristics, for example, sex, social position, and blood group. We have active variables that are susceptible to manipulate and experimentation. Stimulus variables that refers to any condition or manipulation that is introduced by the researcher into the environment. And we have response variables that are the body's response that is induced by the stimulus variables that researcher introduced. After we have qualitative variables. There are those that express characteristics that may occur in individuals, groups, or companies. We have ordinal variables whose values are susceptible to order, but doesn't occur in a magnitude of differences, and they correspond to the ordinal measurement scale. And quantitative variables that the values of these variables are expressed in degrees, different magnitudes, or measurements.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about the level of measurements. As we can see here, we have four these levels of measurements, and in the first one that we have is the nominal measurement. It is a type of categorical data measurement that classifies items or observation into distinct unordered groups or classes. Also, in this scale, numbers or levels are used to represent different categories, but the values have no inherency, numerical meaning, or order. Okay, in the second one, as we can see here, is the ordinal measurement. It is a type of data measurement that categorizes and orders items or observation based on meaningful sequence or ranking. In this scale, the categories have an order, but the intervals between them cannot be measured precisely. Okay, now with interval measurement, we can see that it is a type of data measurement that categorizes and orders observations based on a consistent scale with equal intervals between consecutive points. On this scale, the numerical values not only represent the order of the categories, but also indicate the magnitude of the differences between them. And the last one that we have is a ratio scale. It is a type of measurement that has all the characteristics of an interval scale, but includes a true 0 point, which indicates the absence of the measured quantity. In a ratio scale, not only are the intervals between values consistent and significant, but the proportions of the values are also significant.